and welcome back to school. You've made it through the summer, now there's work to do. So put a smile on your face and sing out with me. We're gonna have a good year, just wait and see. We're gonna have a good year, it's true. We're gonna have a good year, me and you. So put a smile on your face and sing out with me. We're gonna have a good year, just wait and see.
Good day, everyone! Before we proceed to our discussion, I prepare a simple activity. Are you familiar with the game 4 Fix 1 Word? Okay, so I prepare 3 pictures and I want you to answer the following pictures. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Picture number 1. Anyone who want to answer? Okay, it is feedback. Picture number 2. Okay, it is choice. So last number, picture number 3. Who wants to answer? Very good. It is lesson. So feedback, choice, lessons are the words that are connected to our discussion for today. Are you excited, class? So our topic for today is all about the different type of assessment. But first, let's define what is assessment. Assessment is the systematic basis for making inferences about the learning and the development of its student. It is the process of defining, selecting, designing, collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and using information to increase student learning and development. So when we say assessment, it is the full range of information gathered and organized by teachers about their student and their classroom. It can be gathered in informal ways such as through the observation or the verbal exchange. It can also gather through the formal ways such as assignment, tests, and the different reports or outputs. So in assessment, there are 3 general purposes. These are the assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. So first, assessment of learning. It is a way to find out what the student have learned and if they are aligning to curriculum or the grade level standard. Assessment of learning are usually the grade-based and can include the exam, the portfolios, the final projects, and the standardized tests. For assessment of learning, assessment for learning is described as assessment as learning. Assess a student's comprehension and understanding of skills of lessons during the learning and teaching process. Example is the monitor of the student progress. As is the assessment as learning. When we say assessment as learning, it is actively involves the students in the learning process. It teaches critical thinking skills, problem solving, and encourage students to set the achievable goals for themselves and objectively measure their progress. For better understand, I have here a video about the purpose of assessment. So watch and learn.
Hello and welcome to Teachings and Education, the purpose of assessments. So, what is the overall goal of using assessments? Educators must use assessments as a tool to improve instruction. Improving student learning will always be the primary goal of assessments. It must be used formatively to pinpoint when students become lost. When students are lost, teachers can intervene through assessments. Teachers can decide to reteach, move on, or change teaching strategies. Now, on a larger scale, assessments are used for evaluation as well, which is different. Assessments still evaluate whether or not students are learning to read, write, and do math. When it comes to standardized testing, they serve the purpose of identifying gaps within an entire school or a classroom. So, assessments can identify deficits in both the classroom and schools as well. It's always important in both life and in education that we learn from our mistakes. And teachers should want to show students that hard work pays off. Assessments provide intrinsic motivation and a payoff for studying very hard.
So I am back! So now, let's proceed to the type of assessment. First is the diagnostic assessment. So diagnostic assessment is measure how students are performing and learning with their current teacher. The diagnostic assessment is a little different by measuring the students' prior knowledge, and it measures what previous teachers and schools have taught them. The benefits of diagnostic assessment is it's clarified the misconception the students may have. It enables the teachers to build their own strength. It shows how much groundwork the teacher will have to do and introduce the new concept of information. And lastly, at the end of the course, the teacher can show the student their pretest and point out how much their knowledge has grown. The next assessment is the formative assessment. When we say formative assessment, it is used to provide ongoing feedback to both teachers and students. Teacher can then improve their teaching while students can improve their learning based on their achievement. The goal of the formative assessment is to monitor the students' learning to provide their ongoing feedback that can be used by instructor to improve their teaching and by the students to improve their learning. The next one is the summative assessment. When we say summative assessment, it is the important part of the assessment process. Why? Because it is incredibly valuable to both the students and the faculty, inserting into the key moments within the curriculum. They're ensuring the high-stakes exam and secure and is a valid measurement of student learning and providing students with the performance feedbacks. Educators gain insight into how well their content is learned and absorbed. The goal of the summative assessment is to evaluate the student's learning. The example of it is the midterm exam and the final project. And now we are finished to the 3 types of assessment. So I have here a video clip that shows the differences between the 3. Before we proceed to the next assessments, let's watch this.
Let's compare diagnostic versus formative versus summative. How are they similar and how are they different? So, why should you implement each assessment? Diagnostic assessments will inform teachers of student achievement gaps and other academic abilities. Formative assessments will help teachers recognize when students are stuck during instruction. Summative assessments will measure whether a student has mastered a large quantity of material. When should you implement each assessment? Well, diagnostics are often given the first day of class, mostly before starting a course or a new unit. Formative assessments are administered directly during the teaching process, and summative assessments are given last, at the end of the unit or the end of the period or course. What are some examples of each assessment? Diagnostics can usually be found in the course textbook. Texts usually have pre-course tests. Formative assessments can be as simple as using student questioning techniques. And a summative example can be a class thesis paper. Next, how should you use each assessment? Diagnostic assessments can be used to plan future lessons and to differentiate students into groups. Formative assessments are best used to make teaching decisions on the fly. Should I keep explaining or should I move on? Summative assessments should be used to judge whether or not a student can advance through a course.
Okay, now let's proceed to the next assessment, which is the ipsative assessment. It measures the performance of the students against the previous performance from that student. With this method, you're trying to improve yourself by comparing the previous result. You're not comparing yourselves against other students, which may be not so good for your self-confidence. Ipsative's feedback could be combined with the traditional grade. Next is the norm reference assessment. It is the test designed to compare an individual to the group of their peers, usually based on the national standard and occasionally adjusted for age, ethnicity, or other demographics. The types of norm is reference assessment includes the IQ test and the physical assessment. Norm reference assessments are most useful when measuring the student's achievement to determine the language ability, the grade readiness, the physical development, the college admission decision, and also the need for additional learning support. And now, let's differentiate between the criterion reference assessment and the norm reference assessments. So I have here again the video clip and I want you to watch this video.
Welcome to Teachings in Education. Now let's compare normed reference assessments versus criterion referenced assessments. How are they similar and how are they different? So what is the aim or purpose to norm referenced assessments? Well, they have a goal to rank students based on test achievement scores. On the other hand, what is the goal of criterion reference assessments? Their goal is to measure the skills and knowledge that a student has mastered. In norm reference assessments, scores are given as a rank and they are based on other student scores, similar to a race where competitors are ranked for gold, silver, and bronze. With criterion reference assessments, student scores are usually given as a percentage. If a student gets all questions right, for example, that is 100%. Now, a norm reference test would differ from a criterion reference test in the number of students tested. Norm reference tests usually assess a large number of students. Criterion, on the other hand, usually assess a smaller number of students. Norm tests take a longer time to develop, and these tests take a longer period of time for the students to complete as well. Criterion reference tests are not as long as your norm reference tests. These tests usually last only about a class period. Normed assessments are developed on a larger scale compared to criterion. They're often developed on a state or national level, and criterion reference tests can be developed individually. They are mostly created by the classroom teacher.
So that's all for today. I hope that you enjoy and learn from this video. God bless and keep safe, everyone.